So, yeah, just let me know when you're good with that.
Yeah. 1 minute. Oh shit, I forgot we have to flow. Sorry. Okay, I'm good. Just let me. Oh, wait, I should mute myself.
Okay, cool. Okay. Resolve the United States and the People's Republic of China also eliminate their nuclear arsenals, all spectrum to find anything across. The absence of a long-term solution. This card explains implementation of number 16. To achieve global elimination of nuclear weapons, discuss disarmament efforts, increase transparency, public reporting, weapons as well as software, increase confidence, increase effectiveness, behavior. Disarmament is irreversible, verifiable for increased use, decreased operation ready, surface switch, and more nuclear weapons, and production of materials, limit, access to software, and efforts to product, disarmament, process, starting production, anyone to dismantle nuclear weapons at the advantage. China's offensive realist clashes inevitably what happens strongly. Something to fight the rather like a visible limits the rest of China of the rich China to willing to expose China can be subject to the US over Japanese. Over the official code of the CPC codes this is that China's more confident than the last second. China's real defense versus China's specialized the official punish the false policies are ambitious with the risk of the US. Seriously, the Chinese phone also regarding the number of the official sort of false the chief after interest reshaping the national order basic misleading the list and project ambitious China can offer conflicts which include US United States Russia independence. The U.S. is strengthened and is very possible to China nations, who has the weakness of China has made efforts towards military revolution, China operational areas that you need to despite economic independence. China emphasizes according to China's use of 325 to its current emphasis to make it harder for China to back on territorial crisis. As China's economic power change, probably conflict initiates territorial increase from 0.01 to 0.81 is probably conflict initiated against non-territorial operated increase from 0.02 to 0.45 offense release for China's power make a country more solid rather than cooperative. China will maintain its uncompromising firm position even though it has conflict and seriously harm regional stability. Nuclear weapons are the linchpin of Chinese hegemony, and if he was reliable, unreliable, and can't track China. 19. To establish hegemony, China, Asia, China is building his expanded nuclear force, nuclear capability to U.S. efforts to defend Taiwan, Japan, and other allies. China, in general, first nuclear first use, no first use policy, transfers for special China will just China's strategy allows strikes even the answer conduct operations. China practice secrets. China's boundaries expand. China lynching U.S. military superiority. No splash points to go nuclear. China 18. See increased pressure on Taiwan able installations. The stage purely Chinese expansions. The fighters just it does have U.S. aircraft confrontation. No one is possible. Odds are going higher. Are going nuclear higher. China has nuclear repetition become conventional force. Nuclear suspicion can skid nuclear competition. Mechanical for generate pressure to escalate operation damage. Trying to secret force making my nuclear accident with 5 murders and flashpoints. Someone the independent of US my shoot first outside the eventually convinced for sure works target conventional variants destroy nuclear ones leaders by turning intercontinental missiles are vulnerable. Yes, more none of their impact defense assumes Chinese adventures and Shinak and Federal 19. Beijing's hyper-nationalistic efficiency, increasing the current forces attack U.S. Navy ships operating all of the PRC 70 conflict with the South appears to ability to invasion war. The officers chase us with PRC plans engagement, increasing the interest across the SAS. China snaps the SAS broken strategy, control with the vital comments apparently World War. The China built air base and 24 ships. China's Navy harassed other nations by the troops. Neighbors began to push back loan commitment for engagement. During discussions about the EU and NATO neighbors, commitment included stability block changing. The Chinese defense was seen as threat that the EU, France, needs their aircraft into the reach any unchecked, trigger mutual defense off the Asians. Unity encouraged nations against Chinese intentions activities. Nuclear war caused extinction. Ozone lost its fire source to agricultural distress. 17. In this Hong Kong will instantly fires. The black coach reduced their activity. Korean World War II to help the global weather for 5 million tons of black carbon smoke less than 2 weeks and paid for the decade. Brazil, although it's not the 25% unprecedented history, the nuclear weapons were 1,000 times more powerful than any nuclear bomb. Larger nuclear fire source war with strategic nuclear weapons reached 180 million tons of black carbon, 70% in sunlight. Temperatures fall to freezing, growth would be eliminated, which due to human population now you too. The standard is maximized sense of well-being. First action says to 8-point aggregate action. Every policy benefits some harm, which also means for action. B-point no act omission distinction. Truth and no man's action. Governments actively decide not to act. So there's no omission to use those lexical prerequisites for any other purpose. There's actually like the ability of moral actors to effectively utilize and act on other moral theories to consider constant state of crisis that inhibits the other moral conditions, which other theories presuppose three station first on any frame. 8-point precludes the possibility of any kind of moral value. We can't confer value onto anything if we're not allowed. B-point future generations means infinite magnitude. We need to look for a spiritual last now theory. One of theory. 8-point the object is otherwise that I can't engage if it be making debate impossible. No two in our theory kills resolved, but they construction has to intervene away the interpret two-way counter. B-point drop it into the short money or irreparably escape from use and substance time miss theory. C-point no RBS the same space and 200 things option short term gap infinite one and C-B spirit of super proofs and time standard theory. D-point use competing terms 1 year in terms undefined directional direction have to find the north instead have more time. Yes, FRBS 8-point have performance 1 year answer C theory, which gives my time out the argument. C bites out 100 percentage by better one. B-point no receiver for the negative. You can go for in the 2 and iron but not recover. But if I over allocate, you can kick it. For fairness is voted basic competitive activity and these both debaters be on an equal playing field. Argumentatively, technical literacy by nuclear policy skills are especially necessary in a generation of agencies for majority of all 18. Failure in the nuclear weapons can be catastrophic. Efforts for top proliferation can be prevented by being a member of the community, disarmament, educational space expertise, policy expertise, health science, decision making, confrontable policy issues, expertise, value, and political leads, epistemic of control, disarmament, hypothesis, influence, pass on influence, powerful, and thanks to important systems. At the end of the world, there's a perception no longer any nature, nuclear games, experts in disarmament towards new generation going perception of building a social movement towards disarmament. Scenario planning for IR nuclear war is valuable. Develop accurate explanatory models and will avoid cognitive biases. Junio Macau 13. The scenario method activity theory, building articulated word based on cognitive bias rather than speculation, predicting an offer of future standard systems, developing time-accessible hypothesis, scaring, gathering data, and teaching supply theory, policy, one common uses, deciding conditional for high chances of probable events occurred. The best example of nuclear warfare rigorously developed narratives made proof the study of orient, short coded and anticipated political issues, identify a wide range of sense matters, explanation of different response matters, and predispositions, hypothesis made that we test against data scenarios used, scholarship on nuclear warfare, the journal nuclear war study, narrative analysis of identify new independent barriers, also proxy information. You want to see scholarship supplements resistance because it masks supply lines and networks that create complex systems power brain 12 to be effective with aspects of things as well as force realizing something as communication and logistics fast also things that complete difference and handwave physical barrier and challenging the voice about the science is opposing war machine strategic intervene to get to work critique I don't reject your political aims but wonder how to get there more than critical simply that's why bad things are we can blow up the right networks. Sorry if I'm unclear, my mouth's still like warming up to stuff.
Yeah, you're good. For cross-ex?
Yeah.
Okay. The scenario, this argument about the nuclear weapons and the Chinese hegemony argument, what's the impact of Chinese hegemony?
It causes revisionism and expansionism in South China Sea and
So
Taiwan.
China's already revisionist. So how does this cause revisionism?
Wait. Yeah, so China is revisionist, which means conflict is inevitable. That's the argument. It's not that they're going to become revisionist. Yeah.
Okay, so then what is the after-solve if conflict is inevitable?
Nuclear war. Specifically, flashpoints in Taiwan. And the reason why we also saw conventional war is because the warrant for why escalation happens is because conventional and nuclear assets are intertwined in Taiwan. Taking away nukes makes it less ambiguous and means that everyone gets to revise their battle plans so that there's not underestimation of each other's.
Right. So you solve this like less ambiguous argument, but your other evidence talks about how China is trying to establish hegemony in Asia and how other conflicts are because of the intervention and like all those kinds of things. So how does the AF solve that just by this intermingling argument?
Right, so the argument is that China underestimates the strength of U.S. forces in Taiwan. That leads to miscalculation. Absent that, China will be able to calculate and maintain the conventional war to a limited one in the South China Sea that doesn't escalate and draw in global allies.
Okay, the method cards. Can you give me an example about when technical literacy about nuclear policy spilled up?
Yeah, so the Fort Doherty evidence makes a uniqueness claim. People don't think that nuclear weapons are a real issue now, which means that there's a bunch of ignorance. People don't really care.
I understand the warrant. I'm just asking, can you give me an example of when it has spilled up?
So I think, a great example is this topic. Like being able to learn about nuclear weapons has made us all a lot more interested in disarmament, how we get from one place to another. So it hasn't
happened before. The scenario planning argument, what is that? What is scenario planning?
Scenario planning means mapping out potential scenarios for the future, using explanatory theories to apply it to the real world, see how accurate they are, see what needs to be revised about them. Also, the answer to the above is that it says we need informal groups, which is not like we all have to become policy experts, but rather just being informed citizens is good because it dictates
so
how we contribute
if
to
you and I
democracy.
become informed citizens, how can that make any change?
Because we can contribute effectively to public discourse, to the marketplace of ideas, and to our democracy.
How?
By, once we turn 18, we can vote, we can mobilize others to vote, we can tell other people what's going on, what's up with like nuclear weapons, like whatever, like a lot of people in debate are already doing those kinds of things, like movement building.
Sure, the Bryant evidence, how does your scholarship supplement resistance? Like, what does that mean?
So the Bryant 12 evidence is about logistics. The AF analyzes the specifics of how we get from one place to another, how we get from the status quo to de-escalating war. That is necessary instead of just pure critique.
I'll stop prep.
Oh, do you want to use 5 minutes or 4?
I don't know what TOC is. Can you just use
5?
5? Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay, 4 minutes left. There should be one and then case starting on the method arguments.
Okay, cool.
I sent it. Actually, it'll start on theory and then it will be method.
Okay, sounds good. Give me a moment. I'm just opening it. Okay, I'm good whenever.
The symbolic no longer stands for the real as a copy, but instead is a copy of a copy. This is a simulacrum operates through an endless expansion of information. Variety 11. Reality found is not within the reduplication of the real from medium to medium. The real fault has become an allegory. Death is also reflex and destruction because reality person to reality is absorbed. Happy reality. The entire come to low files absorbed in simulacrum political combinations. Short and trying to live in confines of simulations, simulations in place of consistency, capital square financial speculations, space evolution, material production to the material living simulation process proliferation that limits eradicating sense detachment market. The brain is a market. Semi-capitalist hyper reality break on this definitely. And the absence of imaginative politics and futurism is an ideological relation to time and capitalism. The myth of futurism is shifting towards a cyber culture where information expands indefinitely while dystopia increases a contribution towards a globalization of knowledge ranks on semi-capital that produces endless war and death. Priority 2. The future-centered ideology of 20th century makes the idea of utopia, utopian imagination, proposed ideas, utopia, utopia, the trust in the future cyber cultures, given to imagination, for women, thoughts, utopia, and depressions, produce a golden system of virtual life and active virtual knowledge and after artistic imagination, so never forget the territory for interspecially, order to the earth, new system, possible of futures, rich and modern campus, and the experience of expansion and economy of knowledge. This economy results in accumulation step as well. The result of the constant hearts of space, McCullough gets and also the conception of progress to adult translation to reality of economy code, the pros, actions, productivity. The impact is desensitization and panic. Information expands indefinitely. Our ability to process information is organic and limited. This overdemand for semi-capture reduces sensibility and empathy, producing extinction. Priority 3. Subsistence and limited and continuous expansions every time it's organic. Therefore, is limited. Everything the limited. Subject to infinite establishes the interesting mother mind rest and panic with intensities. Sensibility factors that makes everything understanding possible. The ability to cover what's kind of the culture. It's ever non-verbal size of witnessing the development of generation. Like it's ability to empathetic on the other. Two concepts are confined by system. Of course, we know that the person is good to come, but we don't expect this to be full with the promises. Present, past, futures, major, distant consciousness. We have the future being spread by the integration of information, technology, and culture. Check on the special relations, utopia, fascist military transfer from position. Plus, the role of the ballot is there for the major best resist capitalism, vote negative, to exhaust the system and turn it against itself. The simulacra is oversaturated in imagination, making exhaustion the only way to destroy capitalism. Accumulation of growth already full. Class receptification of the common language affects semi-capitalism, possible to the sense of elevation, exhaustion, the new escape system, tends to suffer an example of the challenge at the summit. As I say, no thinking of the reversal of energetic subjugation that animates the revolution theories that turns out to the opening of the theories of motion based on exhaustion, becoming controls of women's civilization, history withdrawn for growth, expectation of the consumption, radical capacity of the beneath the relevant productivity of the new politics, and as well, so we're finding it possible to define this imposter, looking for death towards a new kind of station, creativity, like this. It really feels like I'm just emphasize the creative side of which always create a way to keep withdraw from the economic situation, where the new law of economic growth is the self-organization general and talking about the law of accumulation, so new way collective intelligence is subject to common good. Now, case, starting with the theory out of you. Turn our response to unreal, so just allows them to extend when both these spike and when every single round to avoid clash and concepts of education. Next, we'll grant that you usually get one A theory, but you don't need it in this round since we just went one. Okay, that's just an implicit reasonability by to every theory argument that times few arguments. There isn't one since we both have 30 minutes to speak. That just means you just have to get faster and more efficient. That one yes is also inevitable since every strategic turnout is trying to collapse. So you should grant us two not theory since they can just read like 5 new shells in one. And we obviously need some kind of theory to check back in. So just justifies infinite arguments which outweighs their claims of magnitude. We also did read arguments, even if fairness matters, our role about it. So comfort and frames what kind of impacts we care about in them, what impacts we care about when we're doing these things like policy making education, which is that the competitive activity only matters insofar as it's impacted to some kind of thing that the competition can do, which only our role about the framing arguments. But even if framing arguments are generally true, if the plan itself is bad, then you don't get to access these net benefits. So on the variety evidence, they were not able to give you a single example in cross-ex as to when technical literacy did spill up to create some kind of material change. They gave you examples of things like voting and stuff, but voting is at an all-time low, which is not unique with claim theory, but proves that more information throughout time has only created even worse problems. The idea that information is going to help is a linkage and critique from the Cold War to now. Information and news media has definitely expanded, but people are still not taking news seriously, which kind of proves our uniqueness. Came the next piece of evidence, scenario analysis. That's exactly what the alternative is, but the app is not this, since it's an example of a hypothetical scenario that has no basis in reality and cannot the Brian evidence. The alt isn't just like the state is always bad. The alternative is able to do these things and can do better into regular structural analysis of how we say is able to recreate the same threats or to return again to the usual arguments, even if new inconsequential. In the case should just be an impact filter or to all these arguments. We have to analyze the structures and prerequisites. Naive to think that the same violence repeats throughout time for no reason. For no reason, the A-spec arguments, you should prefer the negatives arguments. The idea that the state has specific obligations to be able to save these other bodies is a critique. The idea that this is infinitely expanding into the future, the recreation of threats to try and justify the state action, the usual purpose of presumed in the first place. And we also have a bodily threats argument through our impact evidence, the extinction. But you should ask yourself what extinction even means. The app just claims this to be like the physical existence of bodies, but our value to life argument proves that this isn't good enough when it isn't good enough for the state. It's value life makes life meaningless. It also doesn't preclude moral values. Since we have to be able to, since we should opt out of the system in order to recreate new modes of living to begin with, the future generations don't value them. Since we have no way to tell whether future generations are going to be net good or bad, there's no way for us to weigh the way between these arguments. Are the case at the top. Along from the cross-ex conflict is inevitable because China's original sense is intervening in South Asia, which means that massive conventional war is just definitely probable in the world of the app, and the strength of link of the sovereignty is just super tiny. The Chinese hedge impacts. U.S. imperialism has gone up hits for too long. China's rise is key to provide political stability. China's get strong. It teaches you to place country never seek academy, West military democracy, rise and path on one to one, peace, loving culture, tradition, amazing speakers, and the original space, and represent use of false ideas. When the relation just ended China will need to balance emergence and also benign U.S. government for population to increase the to establish the country. East Asian instability leads to World War III. 2K, no mind, mental health, any there's good deals, just God, when the sun equal age, lots of kind of organization, negotiations, relations, keep it on easy, provided the corporate units, the commercial, interesting labor, when you're competition, institutional security, the U.S.-China war arguments, it doesn't go nuclear by 19. And nuclear attack is extremely like U.S. China's conflict with to recovery, which two sides try to conquer, but if attacks on land targets would be in solution systems that support American capitals and nuclear force of both countries as physically separate from just one man, even if attacking the nuclear to two versions of doing so. Also distinguish nuclear subs over conventional attackers. It's possible to distinguish short-range shots. Which continent themselves is famous to use, just nuclear subs. It's unlike the Beijing where some nuclear move relating to even if you China usually agency was considered coming against the nuclear subs years as no such attempt to capture the versions over which it was specifically takes out that like intermingling argument that they explain in the Taiwan evidence and US-China won't happen. What would happen because it 2016? U.S.-China relations on a clash of worse on a problem. The U.S. is fully provided for external and internal goods. About Chinese preservation, CCP, Chinese just talked up and not. Reckless and prison can ignore the national borders not for wars. It turns out just now the sensational examples taken for war, the arguments over fighting over Taiwan and regional hegemony in South Asia. These have been going on for decades, and nuclear war has may not happen. You should be super skeptical of all the impact defense, reject the absolute alarmism, nuclear crisis, and historical research churches 17. Or next up, news 94 no time passes more caution comes investments, the absence can be expected in sufficiently gone to the analysis of that and episode nuclear technical instances in charge of being responsible for and careful causes of relation not the external cause extinction means the absence of prevent us all anything that's 6. You consider this out in the relationship of persons of not the results of the breaking of strong theory to small holes or last one respect how the new no some calling the lower elevation study stuff from the to playing the sky black.
Okay. Ready for cross?
Yes.
Okay. What does the alt do?
The alt, it just opts out of the system that tries to recreate, these problems that necessitate these urgent solutions and lead to our impact of desensitization and panic.
How do we choose to just opt out of being overloaded by information?
Vote neg. You refuse.
Right, but what does voting neg look like?
It looks like rejecting the AF, which is an instance of the recreation of semi-capitalism. The link evidence proves that the AF is necessary, a construction of like this hypothetical scenario, piecing together information, reproducing all those things. That is a bad thing. You should not do that. So
Berardi's alt is only implicated as reject the AF. There's no other empirical examples of what it would look like.
Well, I don't know what you mean empirical examples. The point of the K is that all these discussions that we have in debate, like the idea that we can have policymaking education that is going to spill up and create these amazing changes to society, those aren't real.
Well, I understand that, but how does the alternative solve that? Just by rejecting the AF? Or like, let's say we were having this discussion outside of debate and you were like, this is like a cool alternative. I'd be like, okay, I want to join your movement. How do I participate in that?
Sure, it's not like this organized Marxist movement that tries to just destroy the state, but rather it is an individual rejection of like the reconception of semi-capitalism. Every time there's like a new instantiation of it, whether it's in the workplace or in politics or all those kinds of things, like when, politicians try to create this sense of urgency that like, oh, there is a big nuclear conflict, we have to act now. You choose not to do that. You choose to like refuse that system.
So you just choose to do nothing, basically.
It's not nothing. It's opting out of the system that creates the negative
impact. So how is that distinct from that distinct from just sitting home and doing nothing?
Well, firstly, we don't think that sitting home and doing nothing is necessarily bad. That's literally what our impact talks about. Like the endless reproduction is like a bad thing.
Okay. So your argument about voting says that it's low now. What is the reason for why we can't get political participation up?
Right. So I gave some examples how information and public knowledge and education in schools has all gone up since the Cold War, and yet voting is at an all-time low, as you say, and it's a fact, which proves that the increase of information, all these technical literacy arguments don't actually lead to an increase in knowledge. They don't spill up. They just are meaningless at this point.
Okay. What is the warrant for why there's information overload now of all times?
Well, that's like our historical claim about, I think the second piece of Berardi evidence says like the rise of futurism and all those things, and they came after like the 20th century. I think World War II is when like this whole arms race began, which would be like important for like the debate we're having now. And then
so
I
World
think
War
all the
II is like
evidence,
the cutting off point for like regular capitalism.
Well, it's not like a binary like cutting off line, but it's when we begin to see, oh yeah, it is the Berardi II evidence of the like, and it says the future is central in the ideology of the 20th century mixed with the idea of utopia, and it puts this time period in contradiction to the Middle Ages, where perfection was placed in the past.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna start prep now. One last question: is meaning possible under semio-capitalism?
Not under semio-capitalism.
Okay, so meaning is just not possible.
Yeah, it's not that it's never possible, but under a system where we live in like a semi-capitalist government society, it's not properly possible.
Yeah. What is the warrant in sites?
And what?
What is the warrant in like nukes don't cause extinction?
It just like analyzes the impact of if like a bomb were like exploded and then says
Okay.
find a card. Yeah. It just like says what would happen and that it doesn't kill everyone.
Okay. 204. So the order will be the aff starting with the advantage, then the framework, then the method, and then the critique. I'll send out the doc.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Give me a second just to set the timer. Okay. U.S.-China war is going to happen because China's realism causes them to invade the South China Sea and attack intertwined conventional nuclear assets. It's not just a question of them looking alike, which is what their piece of evidence is, but literally being intertwined in their command and control centers, which is any sort of cyber attack or hacking or other attack on them causes miscalculation because people might think there's going to be a nuclear weapon coming when it's actually a conventional weapon, which is entirely qualitatively different than what their evidence says. They say conflict's inevitable, but our argument is what is resolved by their argument. Their gong evidence is that conventional war would not be so bad, but that nuclear war is not going to happen. Our argument is that nuclear war will happen, but their evidence makes the conventional war claim that ours is that it be contained regionally, so the affirmative solves a massive extinction level impact, which is also qualitatively different than any sort of regional impact on land. The evidence says East Asian instability, but I haven't read an internal link to that. The gong evidence assumes a peaceful rise, but that obviously isn't what the affirmative is, because it doesn't assume the specificity of the Taiwan scenario. It doesn't even mention it at all in the piece of evidence. It's not that good, and it's postdated by our piece of evidence. The Blair evidence says this argument is not implicated in terms of revisionist mindset. The sort of sketchiness of the United States policy in the South China Sea causes China to be super suspicious, and inevitably causes miscalculation. The U.S. planners might not attack by Chinese will because they're clouded by nationalism. And the Caucasus evidence, is that it's been happening for years and that it's not probable. It's from 2016. It doesn't account for recent stuff like coronavirus, which causes China to overlash because they want to lash out because they want to maintain their nationalistic sentiments. The terrorist evidence about technological malfunctions, but that is not what our piece of evidence is about. The science evidence doesn't answer ozone or fire storms or any other part of our star evidence. It would punch a huge hole in the ozone, which still causes nuclear, which causes agricultural failure. Now, the Utah. Governments have to use utilitarianism because of aggregation. It's weight between different populations. The idea of a specific obligation won't answer on the critique. None of these arguments answer utilitarianism proper. And they say we presume that we have bodily threats and the value of life. But life is intrinsically infinitely valuable because it's prerequisite to any subject of pleasure. Be preserved as an operator issue. Oh wait, pleasure cannot exist the consciousness. Pleasure can be DO. Considers pleasure all consciousness. The subject of the value obtained when living. Pleasure be of logical reason to pay attention to the fact that we have subjective desire to have objective value. The conscious reason specifies the value when the desire. All feelings is not indicating would be desires function capacity circumstance. The domestic critical with the subjective picture. The pleasure would be distinct from pain, relief. There would be an infinite side of pleasure possible. The and the works to pleasure possible. And this left finds a great satisfaction. So her perpetuity. Now, the underbeat. The Dory evidence makes a unique disclaim. Even though voting is at an all-time low, your debate has caused good things, i.e. Leslie Wexler, the winner of 1992 NDT, went on to create groundbreaking work on landmines, or the leaders of reputable struggle. That proves that there is fill-up, but there has been fill-up in nuclear education, and it takes into account their warrants because there's been a lack of information and ignorance, which means that information overload flips the other way. You should add purpose and specificity because creating informed activists outweighs the negative, which is doing nothing. It also outweighs on Pascal's wager. There's a chance of doing something good for the affirmative, whereas the negative it doesn't. does absolutely nothing. The Bryan evidence especially applies. That alternative is no way of describing how we get from the status quo to revolution simply sitting at home to stop the United States imperialism from blasting off the faces of Chinese soldiers or vice versa. None of that is stopping the alternative, which means it can't possibly solve the affirmative. And the entire AFIS of 6 minutes is that to all of that. The alternative is also not scenario analysis because that doesn't analyze any scenario. It just says we stay home and do nothing. Not the case. Trim the rule of the vote for the side that's better debating, but living there against the wing links to find a win all that special fair predictable each man is clash without witnesses is what is either over the free makes self or serving arbitrarily brackets all off. They concede a fairness matters by asking for their arguments to be evaluated. Second, realism is true states operate in an anarchy structure will inevitably vie for power. Only F explains this. What's the context of war? It means the all fails because individual moral changes don't spill it to macro political change, which means the F is necessary. The links to apply permutation to permutation to the alternative double bind. Either can't solve the affirmative at all, or because it was too weak, or it can solve the links. Form of content is false. Obviously, the form is important, but content used can change the effects of form. Bifo is wrong by connection symbols and capitals. 13 people search optimal modifiers for theory. I'm going to symbols like I'm followed by please match the skills of regular and proliferation protection speculative position taken variety symbolism nothing matters anything global finance absolute fire sports means something abstract is supposed to come out from one community to myself for poetry can only build maybe this in decontextual has an origin theory is assumed to the right position politics with uncountable speculation highly probably catch worded language so basically the end of the card.
Sorry, I was still muted. I didn't realize. I said it was K and then case.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. The thesis of the critique is that the affirmative is embedded in semi-capitalism, a new form of futurism built on the infinite expansion of information. However, our ability to process information is organic and limited, which causes panic and apathy towards other suffering, which confronts us with the demands of cyberculture. Our alternative exhausts the system by withdrawing from its consumers' holderness. This applies to the scenario analysis method and framework arguments. We are in the simulacrum of saturated information. The app is a performative reiteration of this atrocities occur in the real world, which is the real. The media and the authors functions as simulation. No way information of such atrocities are reduced to symbols, and then in cases to be used for tools and balance, the scenario analysis functions as they craft hypothetical scenarios from what they learn in the news, creating a twice system reality that has no attachment to real atrocities. And this produces indefinite information expansion. Think about all the combination of scenario analysis that can be produced. There is no limit to them. And the only contributor to oversaturation causing the agency to be detached from real atrocities that takes out all of the net benefits to framework and the case solvency, since it proves that none of this is going to spill up. They're just crafted for the purpose of the ballot and don't create proper change. Their framework arguments are roll the ballot is so for the best method to resist semi-capitalism. Net benefit is advocacy skills, since the only possibility for us to be able to have any kind of spill up that their fertility evidence talks about. You don't have any links to fairness, since you still get to weigh the representations of the affirmative, just not the hypothetical scenario that you do. That 6 minutes skew argument makes no sense. It's like reading 6 minutes of racism good and then saying, oh, you can't skew my offense, let me weigh. It's not my fault that you didn't have a defense of your representations in the 1 and C. That fairness matches arguments, even if I already made this weighing argument in the 1 and C, even if it matters, the other thing does still matter more, which is overall the ballot argument and our advocacy skills that benefit this. Because if we win that the critique is true and some risk of a link, then there's also individual case types, even under the apps framework arguments, which means we can still win that our link to be proper. The only thing I have to do is to win this debate, to prove that the app is embedded in futurism, which the one year had no defensive extemporality to the app versus matched futuristic politics. All of that was those are the arguments. This is uniquely true that ran in-round activism. This is based on futurism versus cyberculture, but infinite quantum states with respect of information. Therefore, tardy evidence that other views a specific link to this argument. Either and there's an overview to that link. Either the app is a progression of the score, in which case they link, or they are the same as the score, in which case they have no offense, or sometimes you can just vertigo presumption. The state inevitable arguments also don't really make sense. It's not about the state being always bad. It's not what the alt is saying. While the apps focus on futurism or the idea of progress, or even it's even indicts anti-state movements like anarchism, because they're still based on those forms of progress. Counterfactual apps would be an example of using state imagination, not engaging in futurism, which does prove that all methods of state engagement are not bad under a model of freedom. Well, last thing, the realism true arguments, neither of us can create macro political change. It's literally what the thesis of the critique is. So there's no impact to this argument too. Is that the one I had no explanation of what realism means. All they said is, oh, we analyze that states do things because they want power. That is not mutually exclusive with the alternative, with the negative explanation of the critique. Rather, K takes it a step further and analyzes the kind of root cause claims to the app security threats. That was the analysis that we did on the underview, and we'll do later that the permutation. None of these make sense. You can extend the alternative proper here. It's simple. It's just exhaust the system of time in and itself. It shields links into exhaustion, recognizes that futurism hypothetical theorizing and the confusion of semi-capitalism. Instead, the all converts the system with its death through and withdrawal through semi-capitalist consumerism. The permutations are literally the permutations contradict the app. The alt system refused to engage with the system, but the app is literally passing a policy that contradicts with the links. It proves all links are dissets, and we're completely mutually exclusive. That also means that the alt self case, since we destroy the system, that allows for these security threats to be created in the first place, and we withdraw from the system, which prevents the United States and China from being able to exercise these threats in the first place in the form of a concept that's not what I really want. I just said that these specifically structural analysis of IR is necessary to understand why these same threats recreate themselves throughout time. That was also the kind of naivety just that I made on the FY. These threats being recreated throughout time, literally since the Cold War. We always are told that we're at the risk of extinction, but it never happens. Because that some kind of unexpected solution is necessary. The Sturgeon evidence one. This is not my reading of Bifo. It literally says the article name is Review of Bifo's The Uprising, but I read Off the Future, which is not specific to this theory. Two, we don't have to win a critique of. We don't have to win the critique of every symbol in capitalism is bad, but just that the app specific is, which is also the first one. I mean, three, our theory is not abstract. We turn the affirmative for being abstract. Since humans are organic and limited, we don't have the ability to endlessly store information, which is the impact. And also, all the extinction first argument don't make sense. They can see that we also have an extinction impact. That was the variety 3 evidence. It says semi-capitalism causes desensitization and panic. Well, our ability to process information is organic and limited, which over-demand to semi-capital reduces sensibility, empathy, producing extinction, making lives ungreeable. Since we keep recreating these threats and don't see other bodies, we don't see other bodies as real, which is what creates violence in the first place. That means that the links are the link on alternative is a massive link chain and all source keys to all the app's arguments. I go to the app overview. No explanation of any of these examples or framing arguments and cross-links. You should hold them to and don't go the new one-year extrapolation, the Ferraro evidence. You can cross-line my Cold War analysis. It's much more holistic than that one example of these landmines or the NDT arguments. Is since we've proven how information has only increased since then. More news channels have been broadcasting these security threats, and more people have access to these since they become cheaper. But still, the absolute nuclear claims tells you that people are still not believing that nuclear war is a real problem, which only provides more uniqueness for us. It's not uniqueness for you. And second is that they have no sovereignty for this. How is us going to learn about nuclear war going to mean so that people go and like vote for people who are not going to cause nuclear war? There was no explanation of this argument. Pascal, negative, since we've proven that even if we win a risk of a link, then we have access to our desensitization, panic, and extinction impacts. Which means that the negative doing nothing is also offense for us, since it's saying that we should opt out of the system that tries to recreate these same sorts of Brian evidence. We're not saying that we have to magically create a revolution. That was our cross explanation. We're not Marxism, but rather we should just opt out of this system. Sitting at home is better than recreating the same threads that justify U.S. imperialism in the first place, which means that the net better form of scenario analysis. Now, just some quick impact the util arguments, the affirmatives, like the life intrinsically valuable. We also care about that. It's not only a value to life critique, but rather we do both. It's more holistic. The after wants you to exist as a mere blob of chemical number that is alive but destroyed by semi-capitalism, which is simply not good enough, and you should be creating better demands on the state, which means that we actually hijack this ASPEC argument.
Okay. I would like 2 minutes starting now.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be the framework. Okay. It'll be the app advantage, and then the framework debate, and then the critique. Okay. He was trying to warn us about where they conceded the advantage that causes nuclear war, which inevitably causes extinction. Now, the framework debate. Going for framework and fairness first, they conceded a weighing argument that in order for their arguments to be valuable, you have to evaluate the flow on an equal playing field. Otherwise, you could just arbitrarily hack against them or hack for us. If they think that fairness is bad, presume for the affirmative, because that means that you shouldn't fairly evaluate their arguments. That was the weighing argument at the end of the framework argument. Our argument is that our scenario analysis is accurate. Not answering the affirmative means that your securitization indictive scenario analysis doesn't apply, because we want that all of our evidence is explanatorily correct and that it will result in extinction absent that. Absent specific analysis to the affirmative, your links are way too generic, because they generally just say that scenario analysis is a form of featurism that doesn't work, but doesn't explain why it doesn't work, doesn't explain why the explanatory scenario isn't correct, which justifies permutation do the alternative, which justifies permutation do both, because in this specific instance, the app doesn't link to anything, because it's not a form of information overload if it's explanatorily accurate, because people obviously think that some things have meaning, otherwise you can hack against them, because there means that their own theory doesn't have meaning. Now, the fairness doesn't care about spilling up necessarily, but I'll win that in a moment, but it does link to your rolled ballot, because it precludes the ability to clash effectively on your rolled ballot, and is an epistemic indictment evaluating their arguments, because they couldn't effectively test whether or not the NC was true. They say their net benefit is advocacy skills. What advocacy skills do you generate? That's the extension of the blind evidence. Your alternative is literally just sit home and do nothing, and it has no explanatory power for why the US and China will go to war, why Taiwan is a flashpoint, how we solve that, how we get from point A to point B. The alternative was so shoddily explained in the context of the affirmative. That also means that links don't turn the app. The alt doesn't solve case because there was no cross application or anything like that. Winning framework means that we win the round because extinction outweighs and turns everything. Extend utilitarianism here. Governments have to use it, and life is intrinsic value. Your argument about value to life was shoddily explained. You just say that you care about extinction too without an actual warrant, but your argument still devolves that generic value to life argument. That's just like life's not worth living if we're overcoded by semi-capitalism. Our argument is that life is a priori worth living because there's a net benefit to experience and the potential for change. It's a prerequisite to access the alternative or the affirmative, which means that does outweigh categorically any sort of argument. Your extinction argument doesn't escalate to the level of extinction. No internal link, no robust internal link analysis of how you get from desensitization to extinction means that none of your impacts level to the level of the affirmative. Also wasn't implicated in the 1 and C, which means you should definitely allow the two to answer this argument. They say there's no 6-minute skew, but there is a 6-minute skew. There is a 6-minute skew. Your argument is unpredictable because we couldn't be reasonably prepared to clash with it because it's not tied to the resolution. All I knew about was the resolutional question, so anything else is unpredictable, and I shouldn't be expected to read representations good. They have no reason why their specific advocacy was good. 6 minutes of racism is affectively powerful, but it's obviously not what the affirmative is, and it's obviously not what the affirmative is. Now, that's fine. That's fine, I think. Going through the realism argument, you say neither of us can create macro political change, but that's not true. Our argument is about the affirmative being explanatorily powerful, but at the very best, it means you should vote affirmative on presumption because the negative doesn't do anything either. The alternative and individual moral changes can't spill to create any sort of real change because it can't challenge, it can't pull troops out of China, it can't pull sort of F-16s out of Taiwan, and it can't do anything. That's fine. No other answers to the perm means that our specific analysis outweighs. Good job.
Yay, nice job. Let me stop the recording.